Welcome back to Made by J&D. Today I'd like to talk about this bench grinder. It's a Nelswell BG10. That means it's a 10-inch, 1.5 horsepower, 60 hertz, 110 volt, 3600 RPM grinder. The only reason I know that is because that data was on the nameplate. Fair enough. I can't read this nameplate, so I went online looking for something similar. I found two websites that mentioned a Nelswell BG10. One of them I couldn't get into without joining the forum, just was too hard. The other one was a question back in 2019. A fellow his dad had given him a grinder that had been sitting on his shop floor in the dirt for a decade, and he wanted to know more about it. It was a Nelswell BG10. And his dad, the only information he could get from it was when he plugged it in and used it, it would pop the breaker. And he turned it upside down. Inside this little base is a capacitor. His was missing. The one I had in here was blown out. Well, okay, that's the same thing that happened with this. The first time I turned it on, it would start once. I've got 20 amp circuits in this shop, 12-3 wiring. I mean, it's rated. But and the motor, by the nameplate, says 15 amps. But the inrush current on this must be enormous. Even after I changed the capacitor, if I started it once, it would start once, let it slow down and stop, tried to start it again, pop the breaker. Routinely, every time. What are you going to do with that? Well, I've worked out a way that I can make it work by using a 50 amp outlet over there and an adapter, and basically I've got 50 amp power going to this. It's only going to use what it uses. Boy, this is a 1.5 horsepower of Angry. When it gets going, there's not much going to stop it. It's a very powerful grinder. Let me get you close in on it here. The side plates here, good for 10-inch discs. This is a wire wheel, which is the main reason I wanted this device, because I like to clean things with a wire wheel. It was fairly simple on Amazon to find a 10-inch wire wheel that was rated for 3600 RPM. This one's actually rated to 6100 RPM. Trouble is, the guard on this machine is only good for 1-inch discs, and this is a 1.25 inch wire wheel, so I had to make a little bit of an extension to make it fit in there. I also had to come up with some washers on the inside to space the wheel off on the arbor a little bit. But on this side, that's an 8-inch disc. These are the discs that were on it. These are the remains of 10-inch discs. And fair enough, it may have worked for a long time, but here's the deal. That's the remains of the label. It's only rated for 2485 RPM. Well, that's not going to work for me, since this is a 3600 RPM grinder, and it may explode. I've seen the results of an exploding grinding disc, and you don't want to be near it when it happens. So anyways, I guess the main purpose of this video is to tell people that this is a Nelswell BG10, a big 1.5 horsepower, 3600 RPM grinder. And man, it'll eat your lunch if you're not careful. For me, it's going to work really well. I've already used it a few times, and not much, it doesn't bog down at all. This is a real robust grinder. Here's a little bit of a startup. And watch for the lights to dim. You can hear that clicking noise. I had to make these rests. There were some holes in the old guard. They were missing when I bought it. The rests were gone. So I fabricated these out of some heavy iron I had laying around. And I bolted them up to the original 2 holes there in the guard. And then everything else is just inadequate size for me to use. And they're effective. Yeah. I had to take a magnifying glass to read that label. There are some fine dents, but everything I've handwritten there, that's from the pictures that I've shown earlier. So, Nelswell BG10. If anybody has any information on this, I'd really like to have some. I even went to Keith Rucker's website, vintagemachinery.org. In there they have a lot of free prints that you can get for manuals for all sorts of equipment. This isn't listed, and that's not unusual because I've got a bandsaw over there made in Korea. I didn't have anything on that either, even though it's a fairly common thing. So that library isn't complete with everything. If you're like me and you would like to know more information about a Nelswell BG10, more than what I've shown in this video, or what you can find on those 2 websites of a nameplate, well, good luck. If you have one of these and you have a book or any information, country of manufacture or year, or something like that, it'd be interesting to know that. Please let me know. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, or a like in this case, and see you next time.